I don't really have an ambition in poker, just the fun of being able to play all these tournaments is more than good enough for me. But I definitely have a dream. It's a very unlikely one, but when I came close to it in the shootout tournament in Vegas, then that dream of winning a bracelet only intensified. So when the World Series of Poker Europe put on 5 events, all with obviously a bracelet attached, it was a no-brainer to play as much as I could. The one that wasn't clear was whether I should play the Pot Limit Omar event, because although I've branched into the more random mixed games, PLO somewhere in the middle I kind of left behind. But I decided to give it a good go before the whole series and play some more hands, learn some more of it, and felt just about comfortable. It was always going to be an exhausting day, because where you just don't have that volume of hands, then nothing is natural, and you have to think about every situation. But I was ready to fight to keep my head above water, and I think I managed that on the first day. I was exhausted 40 minutes before the end of the day when I got a table change, and who do I find on my left but Barry Greenstein, followed by Gus Hansen, followed by Phil Ivey. I'm happy to admit I committed the poker crime of deciding to knit it up and night guard my way through to day 2. And that I did with double the starting stack, and from that point things went swimmingly well, and then 25 became 30, became 40, became 50, and suddenly the field was kind of decimating around us. In these tournaments, then you don't really take stock too much of the time about how many players are left in or anything like that, because it doesn't matter too much. But I remember looking at the clock at 22 players left, realising I had just over the average stack, and at that point all the thoughts of could this be the one come flooding back, could you make the final table and have another shot at it. And at that point, unfortunately, it all started going horribly wrong, because I'd lost a couple of frustrating pots, and then still with the average stack was dealt aces. Always a tough hand to play in Omaha, because these were poor aces. This was aces 9-4 with just one nut suit. But when it was opened by a loose player into the gun and had 3 callers, I pretty much had no option but to squeeze. It turned out that John Rayson, at one of the November 9, had trapped himself with aces, also poor aces, but probably slightly better than mine. But anyway, on the flop we looked at every bit destined for a split pot, as it came 10-3 deuce rainbow. The turn was an interesting jack, which gave me more outs with the nut flush draw, but gave him a 9 for a gutter ball. He couldn't even hit the 9 of hearts, but he hit one of his 3 outs on the river, and it is now very much up there with one of the most gutting feelings I've ever had in poker. In fact, that feeling is so strong at first, it's the only moment that makes you ask the question, is this all worth it? I think the answer to that question is very definitely yes, as long as 10 minutes later you can emerge from the feeling of being gutted to be happy again. But I think it's so important to make sure that you're able to do that. That actually wasn't the exit hand that had me down to 7.5k, and I actually started to wonder whether I could maybe try and double up once and then might find myself in the min cash. I got the chips in once again against John Rayson. I had 8-10-9 deuce against his 5-5-4-3. I wanted to see some pay and not the little flop that came, 6-3 deuce or something like that. But anyway, I remember he turned a straight, and that was game over. The feeling of disappointment was harsh at first, but I can do nothing with it than let the dream continue. My mate Big John must have seen I was gutted afterwards, because he said to me, never mind, it will happen one day. And I thought about it and thought, probably not, but maybe. Maybe is good enough, and so maybe would continue into the next tournament, the Heads Up tournament.